Well, hey, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Black Freedom Collective Black at the Polls digital rally. My name is Seft Hunter, and I'm the director of Black-led organizing here at Community Change and Community Change Action. It's hard to believe, but we are just 6 short days until the general election. And so far, we know that millions of us have already voted. Millions of us have kind of waited in line and have already cast our vote, either directed at a early voting site or sending those votes in via the mail. Today's event is brought to you by the Black Freedom Collective, an initiative of Community Change and Community Change Action. The Black Freedom Collective is a growing network of Black-led organizations all across the country, committed to building both the power as well as the capacity of Black people to create the conditions where we get the opportunity to thrive and where we get the opportunity to stand in our dignity. So I don't need to tell you how important this election is. And we know what is at stake for us as Black people is in fact creating the conditions where we're able to kind of just live into our aspirations and build the power to make those aspirations real. So this election is in fact about our dreams. And so we're going to pivot right now and hear from some of our colleagues in Ohio on why this election matters. Roll the video, Delivering Black Dreams.
We thought this year was going to be lit. We dreamed big, made plans, and prepared for our future. But we've been tested this year. We marched in the streets for Black lives. We showed up for each other, sharing food, giving out masks, pulling through by pulling together. The super rich have made bank in this pandemic off our lives. Who are they to tell us we can't achieve our dreams? We refuse to let what we look like or where we come from divide us. This summer, we got our country to march in defense of Black lives. This fall, we vote to deliver Black dreams.
All right, and so we know that Black voters are expected to play a critical role in this election. And so over the next hour, we're going to take a virtual flyover, a virtual trip across the country. We're going to hear from voters in Michigan, Missouri, Ohio, Georgia, and Florida. And in their own words, they're going to lift up what is at stake for us in this election? What is at stake, not just for us, but also the people who we love? We'll be joined by a brilliant poet, Sha'Condria icon Sibley from New Orleans, Louisiana. We'll also hear from a gifted vocalist, Langston from Kansas City, Missouri. And so we invite you to share what is at stake for you. So if you're on YouTube or on Facebook, we invite you to drop in the chat. Just share with us what is at stake for you in this election. What is at stake for not just you, but the people who you love in this election. So hang in there with us, y'all. We have an incredible hour in store for you over the next 60 minutes-ish, right? And so at this point, I want to just pause and invite Arlene Holt Baker, longtime labor leader and a fighter for racial justice and equality. And in addition to her many civic roles, Arlene is also the chair of Community Change, the C3 organization. Arlene.
Thank you so much, Seth, and good afternoon to all the voters on this call. History is in your hands. As Seth said, I am Arlene Holt Baker. I am chair of the Community Change C3 board. I am the retired executive vice president of the AFL-CIO, a former California area director for AFSCME, the union that will be forever known in history as the Union of the Memphis Sanitation Workers and the 1968 I Am a Man strike. I was vice chair of a California political party. I will let you guess which one. I'm a feminist, a wife, a mother, and a grandmother, and like all grandmothers, I am a bragging one. But I am a Black woman who has been in the struggle for justice since I was old enough to understand what discrimination meant. I am the great-granddaughter of a slave, Lula Williams, who was in Galveston, Texas on June 19, 1865, when Texas slaves received the word of emancipation. I am the granddaughter of Martha Huddleton, whose husband and son were killed when their truck was hit by a train at an unattended Missouri-Texas railroad crossing near Waco, Texas in 1926. My grandmother sued the railroad for $37,700, but the lawyers wrote her a letter on May 12, 1926 that said, and I quote, and I want you to hear this, "They will not pay over $3,000 because juries do not always place a large price on the lives of Negroes." You see, Black lives didn't matter in 1926 either, and it was plainly written without fear of reprisal or legal retribution. I was born in 1951 in Fort Worth, Texas, during the Jim Crow era, and I grew up having to drink water from a water fountain marked with a sign that said colored until the passage of the 1964 Civil Rights Act. I was 14 years old. I went to segregated schools from elementary to high school and didn't go to a segregated school until I went to college. I am the daughter of Louise Leslie, who had to pay poll taxes in order to cast her vote. She chose to pay the poll tax, often sacrificing a much needed extra loaf of bread for our table. She did this until the passage of the 1965 Voting Rights Act. But I am a mother of a 45-year-old Black man and the mother-in-law of a 40-year-old Black man, whose lives I fear for more in recent days than I had in many years. Their education doesn't matter. The employment status doesn't matter. They are Black. So jogging, driving, or simply trying to live their lives puts a target on their back in both southern states, northern states, and in between. But as angry and outraged as I am about the current state of our democracy and the weakness of the Constitution and the flaws in our criminal justice system, I still have hope. And that is because of the young people today that I see unabashedly demanding systemic change with a fever pitch and a dogged determination. When the history books are written, the voters of color today have the opportunity to be a part of putting our country back on course to continue toward a more just democracy. You know, when Benjamin Franklin was asked by a woman after the signing of the Declaration of Independence, what did we have? History records that he said, "A republic if we can keep it." At that time, it was an imperfect republic because, as you know, it did not include the rights of Native Americans, Black men, and yes, white men without land. Through history, millions have tried to keep the democracy, although imperfect, through many historical periods. Black men elected during Reconstruction, Black and white suffragettes, Tuskegee Airmen, bus boycotts, lunch counter sit-ins, the passage of the Civil Rights Act, and the passage of the 1965 Voting Rights Act. And of course, the election of the first African-American president, Barack Obama. You know, last week, I was on a Zoom call with a group of ministers, and one of them asked, what is different about the 2020 election from 2008 when Obama first ran? And after much discussion, the conclusion was this, that the 2008 election had history-making implications, and it was a moment in history. The 2020 election is driven by movements that have exposed how very fragile our democracy is. And more to the point, it is driven by movements that are intersecting with one another, all demanding transformational change. This demand for transformation is being held by the Black Lives Matter movement, the immigrant rights movement, the LGBTQ movement, Black women, progressive women, and workers who are part of the formal and the informal economy. We are all being called to vote in 2020, the old and certainly the young. like our lives depend on it. Because as we know too painfully, they do. Too many of us can't breathe, either because of COVID-19 or we can't breathe because of systematic racism and sexism. We can't breathe because of student loan debt or an economy that has failed us too many times, even before COVID-19. Voting in 2020 isn't about falling in love with the candidates, but instead, it is about loving your family, your friends, your neighbors, and yourself enough to want a candidate that shares your values and is committed to policies that demonstrate those values. Voting and elections are about a path to power. I'll say it again. Voting and elections are about a path to power. Elections should never be about personalities, but they must always be about the policies. This November 3rd, so much is on the ballot. Voting rights is on the ballot. We see what's happening all over this country because of voting and voter suppression tactics. Black Lives Matter is on the ballot. Eradicating systemic racism and sexism is on the ballot. Police reform is on the ballot. Affordable higher education is on the ballot. Healthcare is on the ballot. Childcare is on the ballot. Protecting our climate is on the ballot. Good, sustainable jobs are on the ballot. Workers' rights and a $15 minimum wage is on the ballot. Eliminating that school to prison pipeline is on the ballot. Immigrant rights is on the ballot. And I live in DC, and DC statehood is on the ballot. Our future and the future of generations yet to come behind us is on this ballot, sisters and brothers. It is so about public policy and not the personalities. As civil rights activist Walter Fauntleroy often said, public policy determines who gets how much of what, when, and where. After every vote has been counted in 2020, my hope is that there won't be a headline that causes us to be in distress, that reads, "The movements for social change in America win distress because we didn't do what we needed to do." But I hope that the headline says, "The movements for social change in America wins up and down the ballot, even in Florida, Texas, and Georgia. People of color are leading the way for community change." My other sincere hope is that after the votes have all been counted, you will continue to show up, speak out, and stay in your streets, lobby your city halls, your state houses, and your federal government for the changes you know are necessary to make this republic what it must be. Our communities need progressive change, and we need it now. And you, my beautiful Black sisters and brothers on this call, you are the change agents that we are waiting for. Vote, my dear sisters and brothers, vote.
All right, Arlene, thank you so much for that. And I got to tell you, those are sage and powerful words. And it's worth reminding, right? This election is about us. We're going to vote our conditions. We're going to vote our aspirations. But we're going to forget about being in love, because that is something that we simply cannot afford at this time. So, Arlene, thank you so much for your words. And certainly thank you so much for your leadership and continued service to the movement. At this point, we know that part of the Black experience is also about how we show the fullness of Blackness. And at this time, I'd like to pivot and invite my good sister from New Orleans, Louisiana. And I got to tell y'all, she is braving a hurricane. She's braving severe storms to be here with us this afternoon. And so welcome back, Sha'Condria icon Sibley, to the Black Massive. Greet us with your brilliance. Take it away, Sha'Condria.
Thank you so much again for having me. It is such an honor. As you stated, a Category 2 hurricane is coming this way, but nothing stops the show, right? And nothing stops our movement towards change and towards empowerment. I thought a lot during this time about what is power and how some people are seeking power and use this election as an opportunity to seek power, while others, it is a means of survival and us finally getting the things that we've been asking for in this country. And so a man arrives on a boat. A man arrives on a boat to a land where the people's skin drinks freely of the sun, yet he calls them anything other than light, strips away their tongues, forces his foreign one down their throats, strips away their land and turns it into an amusement park full of places they cannot afford to live, strips away their culture, wears it as a costume, sells them tickets to the show and pockets the money, strips away their memory and replaces it with his story. And he calls this power. A man arrives on a high horse to the shores of a woman's body, but cannot simply admire the ocean from a distance. Instead, he feels that it is his right, his duty to plunge into its depths, giving no respect to the same kind of water that carried him here, strips away her natural resources, replaces her majesty with monuments to himself, strips away her beauty, hides it beneath his standards, blindfolds her, and then tells her to go and find it. And he calls this power too. And it must surely be something, this power, this thing that will make a man offer up others, even himself, as collateral just to borrow it, just to feel it surge through his veins, even if all this electricity he feels is merely a one-hit wonder if he truly knows what it is he is chasing, or if it is truly worth the chase, or if it's truly worth someone else being erased, how he considers himself superior simply because he has mastered conquer, has mastered the art of take. But what is left of a man when you take away the spoils of war, when he is forced to face himself without his stolen armor? Will he recognize the emptiness of the empire he has built? How no weapon that he has formed is equipped against a people who, despite it all, continue to prosper, continue to pray, continue to survive, who still remember the lightning bolt in their own spine, that we got the strength of a strike, and that struggle has given us the muscle to crack open the sky. So what's the ground to a force of nature? And what are the mistakes of our past to the possibility of our future? For we own the ability to change our own narrative. How some fail to realize that power can be found in a whisper. How we can change our own narrative without even having to scream that power does not have to wear someone else's skin, because power lies within. And it is within knowing that the true rulers of a land are those who it belonged to in the first place. Because power ain't a gender or a race to the finish line. It is the silent affirmation that is left when we finish lying. Power is not in what one can strip away from someone else, but power is what is left when we strip away the things we believe make us powerful, and all that remains is ourselves.
Thank you, my sister Sha'Condria, for that beautiful and powerful moment that reminds us yet again how vital Black creatives and the arts are to this movement and to this moment. I'm Jennifer Wells, I am a senior organizer with Community Change and the Black Freedom Collective. And the 2020 election is not only my work, it is about my life. I am a daughter, I am a sister, I am a partner, I am a cousin, and I am a caregiver. A caregiver that has had to fight and at times scream to receive the access to care that I and my family needed, and more importantly, that we deserve. So I step in this week in one of my most important roles in 2020. I am a Black voter. I am excited to share this moment with you all and to share this space with other Black voters from across this country, from key battleground states. We're talking Michigan, we're talking the coastal South, we're talking the deep South. We are all needed in this moment, and we're going to speak to what is at stake for all of us in this election. Please help me in welcoming my sister and an amazing leader, Tomika Robinson.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. I appreciate that. Yes, my name is Tomika Robinson. I am currently residing in Clinton Township, Michigan. I am fortunate enough to be the digital director for NextGen Michigan. And most importantly, I am the mother of 2 unapologetically Black children. What matters to me most in this election is universal health care, police reform, and liberation for all marginalized communities, especially Black and queer. I believe that everyone has a right to equality and fairness. No one should have to worry about choosing between groceries or an emergency room bill. No one should live in fear of being gunned down by a racist, trigger-happy police officer during a routine traffic stop. No one should feel unsafe while moving through the world as their authentic self. I believe in a world where those who have always been oppressed rise to topple their oppressors, where we flip the script and turn this oligarchy on its head. I have the utmost compassion towards those who are reluctant to vote. I understand that feeling as though your concerns and your issues are appreciated or acknowledged. I've worked on campaigns in the past where I've heard from Black voters who look like me, who are frustrated and exhausted by candidates who make grand promises just to disappear until the next election cycle. Luckily, we have individuals like Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, and Gary Peters who have demonstrated their dedication and commitment to equity and relief on countless occasions for communities like ours. I urge you to participate in the upcoming election because now more than ever, the political has become very personal. We need everyone who has ever felt beaten down, overlooked, overworked, or forgotten to elect folks who look like us and will fight for better. We have the power to win this country back and make it reflect our values, our hopes, our dreams. Voting is our most powerful form of protest. And if you are tired of being let down, then let's lift up together. Please use your civic right and vote this Tuesday, November 3rd, if you haven't already. And I have a personal call to action that I would like for you to participate in. If you go to nextgenamerica.org/vote, you'll be able to get all of the information that you need in order to civically participate this Tuesday. I also invite you to tag 5 people that are committing to reach out to before the election to make sure that they also participate. So I'm going to give you all a second to think about those people and begin dropping names in the comment section. Think of 5 people that you know would love to make sure that their voice is heard, would love to make sure that folks that are elected look like them. Tag 5 people that you know really need to participate on November 3rd. And now I would like to introduce our musical guest, Lee Langston.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lee Langston. I am a multi-genre entertainer out of Kansas City, Missouri. We are right in the middle. And with that being said, regardless to whether you are in the middle or whether you're somewhere out towards the coast, we still need you to vote. Voting is important. Voting is freedom. I'll be singing several songs that you may know. Feel free to sing along. Here we go. Hang on to the world as it spins around. Just don't let the spin get you down. Things are moving fast. Hold on tight and you will last. Keep your self-respect, your manly pride. Get yourself in gear, keep your stride. Never mind your fears. A brighter day will soon be here. Take it from me, someday we'll all be free. Yeah. Play, Odell. Keep on walking tall. Hold your head up high. Lay your dreams right up through the sky and sing your greatest song. And you'll keep growing, growing on. Take it from me, someday we'll all be free. Oh, just wait and see, someday we'll all be free. It won't be long, take it from me, someday we'll all be free. Just wait and see, someday we'll all be free.
Thank you all, and thank you all for dropping the names in the comments and the encouragements in the chat. I want to shout out some folks. I'm from New Orleans too, and I know how to do that. This is how we keep ourselves hyped up. So Crandall Navy in Alaska, yes. Nina in Alabama. Cassie Gainey, who's encouraging her sons Anthony and Eric. Stephanie Arnold in Massachusetts. Philip Love. Bridget Pierce in North Carolina, Linda Freeman, June Brown, I see you. I see how we're taking care of each other in this chat, how we're offering information, how we're sharing out these links. And let me tell you, it is a beautiful thing to see from the angle that I'm looking at it, and even more so at the polls. So I don't want to take up too much time. I want you to keep commenting, keep tagging folks, keep sharing information. This is how we build power, guys. This is how we create the world that we want to live in. And without further ado, I'm going to bring on yet another amazing Black leader, Toni Watkins.
Hey, hello, Jennifer. Hello, America. Like she said, my name is Toni Watkins. I am the Deputy Organizing Director at the New Georgia Project. We are a 501c3 that is all about voting registration, voting mobilization, voting protection. We are your 2020 civil rights organization, right? So what's at stake in Georgia? One, I'm sure that if you are watching this broadcast, then you know a little bit about how exciting, I'll say, that things are here. They're wild. We are constantly in the throes within our organization of advocating for people and making sure that people's votes are actually and legitimately cast. But to answer the question, right, that we're all here to answer, what's at stake? I come to you all in the spirit of Sankofa, right? And looking back at a long legacy that my family members and my ancestors have died and cried and sweat so that we have this right to vote, right? So when I hear people say that, as a 31-year-old person in Atlantan, native Southerner and Georgian, when I hear those things, I have to also consider that my friends, my colleagues, my coworkers are also now living those same exact experiences, of dying, being arrested, fighting, and crying. So when we talk about our ancestors and our grandparents, I think it's really important that we also recognize that we too are out here and fighting these exact same battles. So unfortunately that they fought. I take it to heart. When my grandmother, who is 77 years old and first had her opportunity to vote in 1965 at the age of 22, I take it seriously when she tells me that it is more frightening for her and it is a scarier time for her today than in the 60s when she was first granted this right to vote. When I hear her talk about the death that she witnesses on television as we watch our brothers and sisters and cousins and friends constantly berated across the television as criminals, as victims, we watch our lives literally leave our bodies broadcasted on television. And it is so disheartening to see someone who has been in the throes of these things since she was much younger than I am, still feeling led and pulled to fight in the same way that she did when she was a child and a young adult. So I consider myself a womanist. I also come to you in thinking about my grandfather, who I'm named for, the other Toni Watkins, right, who served in the U.S. Air Force, had to fight for our country, fought for our rights to vote as well, and still had the unfortunate privilege of coming back to a country that didn't value his life and would call him a nigger at any opportunity that they had. So when we think of the things that those people did, and then we live the same experiences again, we are voting for our past, but we are so seriously voting for our future. I hope to be one day a mother and add that to the list of things that I identify as. And I want to create a world that is safe and sustainable and loving for my family that I am one day to helm. And what I know is that is not possible if we do not vote. I hear people in my age group say all the time that voting is ineffective, it's not impactful, and it doesn't work. And what I am here to tell you is that it is a self-fulfilling prophecy. If it's not working because we're engaging. We are very clear that this is a battle and that this is a war, and that the people who occupy oppressive posturing in the state of Georgia, we know their strategies. And it's a very simple tactic to defeat it, right? And that tactic is literally just stepping into your ballot boxes and voting. It's very simple and it's not very easy. So that's why groups like New Georgia Project is here to try and make that process a little bit easier for you, but it certainly doesn't take away from the responsibility that we have to make sure that we vote. So in short, right, what I will conclude with in saying is that you are voting for your family members. You are voting for those people that we see die at the hands of a police state. We are voting for people that have unnecessarily died in medical care because we live in a state where maternal mortality is arguably the worst in the country. We're voting for people that cannot vote today because the access to healthcare was too far away. Because again, we remove funds from things that help our community and replace them into things that sometimes harm. So if you are a person that is frustrated and hurt and tired, then your first step is to vote. Your second step is to remain engaged in holding these people accountable. And then finally, if you don't see anybody that you like that's accountable, please feel free to also consider running for office, because we are a community of change and that needs more change. And I am so privileged and so honored to have been here and share this with you today. I hope that when all eyes are on Georgia in a couple of days and over the next few weeks, that we are back here and we are in a celebratory space because we have really moved the needle and we have voted for some real change here.
That's that. We're going to vote our conditions, y'all. We're going to vote our conditions. Sometimes we know the candidates are real people, and they may not necessarily check every single box for us. So we're going to vote our conditions, not necessarily always the candidates. So Toni, thanks you again for showing up powerfully. And thank you for staying in the fight right here in Georgia, because we absolutely need you rested up, fired up, and ready to go here over the next week. And we know New Georgia Project is going to deliver. Thank you again, Toni. At this point, I'm reminded by our dear sister, Coretta Scott King. She reminds us that freedom isn't free. It isn't free, right? Instead, she says that, we don't vote and have the luxury of walking away and feeling like, okay, that is done, that is won, right? Instead, she says that freedom must be re-won. And I know that as Toni lifted up, that sounds unfair, right? But in essence, it falls to us. It is now our responsibility to pick up that banner and to continue the fight to ensure that we are winning the unfinished work, right? Which we know is about Black humanity, which we know is about affirming Black value and Black worth. And so at this point, I would like to bring back the venerable Sha'Condria icon Sibley to come back and share a word with us. Good sister Sha'Condria, take it away.
Thank you, Seft. Oh man, this has been such a beautiful, I didn't expect it to be so beautiful. I mean, I did expect, but I am just blown away by the talent, by the speakers, by the idea that we all believe and know the power of Black people, how we rely on, that's one of our tools, our faith, our fight. We have all of those things at our disposal to use. And being here in New Orleans and being on the verge of a hurricane, it got me to thinking about this other piece that reminded me of how Black people in this country have been drowned, so to speak, have been crucified, literally, figuratively, all of those things, and how we always find a way to rise and always find a way to come above it. And so as magical as we are, we're still human, but we still have something so godly and so divine about us. And we still know rise. We still know roll back stone, still know grave clothes turn to white robe, still know faith. And our faith has taught us to walk on water across both ocean and swamp, taught us to make empty shell of both body and grave, proving that we are bigger than both, bigger than anything that tries to drown us or shake us off our foundation, because we know that freedom is somewhere on the other side of struggle, even if breath is always not. So I will not speak of the storm, but I will speak of those whose chains to this world broke when the levees did, of those who laid their burdens down by the riverside when the flood failed to subside, are of those who stepped off ships into the hungry mouth of a sea, seeking something that tasted more like home, who chose lungs full of salt water over a lifetime of bitter tears, who did this even while full of fear. I will speak of those who lost what seemed like everything, but still found something in the residue worth holding on to, even if it was just a memory. How they scraped up those memories and made more, took the scraps and made meals, made tradition, made an entire existence out of everything the devil tried to steal, and still, how it was more than enough. I will speak of those who know rough side of the mountain, yet continue to climb over rock and hard, and still manage to build a church upon this place. I will speak of those who still got a prayer and a praise flowing from the floodline of their lips, even when they have to fight through both scarce and surge, just to be heard, just to remain here. I will speak of those who know hell and high water, who know below sea level, but who also know heaven, who know holy, know hollow, and hallowed be thy name, no gutted out frame and filled up spirit, no fall down and get back up again and rise and rise and rise and rinse and repeat, no left out to dry, but also no come up for air, no held breath and bellowed hymn, like the one the mothers used to sing on Sunday morning after a baptism, when the old becomes new and the body realizes that it is indeed bridge instead of burial, and that no grave, not even one made of water, not even one made by man, can hold it down for too long. I will speak of those of us who may at sometimes feel hopeless, but our souls still remind us to whom the victory belongs. So toll the bell, done got over, toll the bell, done got over, toll the bell, done got over at last.
My name is Maya Brown. I'm a political and community strategist with People Over Profits and helping to elect Black and progressive leaders up and down the ballot in Florida, the most crucial state in play in the union. Right now, Black voters across this country have been living a tale of two quarantines. For the past several months, we've been quarantined to our homes and essential services, watching the failed leadership nationally and in the state of Florida by the mishandling the response of the COVID-19 global pandemic that has disproportionately impacted Black people, while also reeling in the daily news stories of yet another Black person murdered at the hands of law enforcement and the police brutality unleashed to those who have the courage across the nation protesting that same police brutality. This election is an opportunity for collective and intentional response as a deliberate action for change. Electoral access is a power we know, and we know this by Amendment 4. In 2018, Floridians across the state of Florida voted overwhelmingly to return the right to vote to returning citizens. And yet there's leaders in Tallahassee who are putting partisanship over access to democracy by continuing this voter suppression and not letting our voters vote. We see this now in 2020 with Amendment 3 that's on the ballot that will disproportionately eviscerate Black and brown representation in Florida if Amendment 3 passes. We see this also with the vote by mail suppression with the United States Postal Service, the intentional removing of drop boxes and the intentional lag times of delivering mail to ensure an informed electorate, and then blocking the assurance that ballots will be received and counted. And we can't forget voter intimidation. We have heard our current occupant of the White House tell white supremacists to stand back and buy, and has not declared boldly or denounced white supremacists. We've also seen here in Florida that there's armed security that is intimidating voters at polling places. This election means so much to me as a voter, as a Black voter, because we have a guaranteed access to representative democracy on the ballot, both in terms of our shared values and also in terms of our race, our gender, sexuality, and how we show up and identify on the world are all literally on this ballot. The continued destruction we see happening in government and the erosion of our electoral power can be stopped in its tracks when we all vote at every level of government, not just the president, but for better district attorneys and attorneys generals, for better mayors, sheriffs, and state legislatures. If we want better outcomes, we have to elect better people and empower better leaders to create better legislation. We are our ancestors' wildest dreams. We've made quantum leaps across this country, electing historic wins all across and up and down the ballot as Black people. But we must continue to all vote because our ancestors literally died for this opportunity. If electoral access and participating in the voter process wasn't this powerful, we wouldn't be fighting this hard to stop them from preventing us from doing it. So I ask that you join me here in Florida to make a plan to vote to flip this state here in 2020. But the work does not stop here, y'all. We must continue to organize every day after November 3rd. And remember this dear election of our current state leaders in 2022 and vote them out.
My name is Greene. I'm the executive director of the Freedom BLOC. I'm also a husband, a father, and a grandfather. And this year's election becomes important for me because it gives us a chance to elect officials that's going to allow us to rebuild Black America, to build an economic base through reparations, through economic development, through job creation that allows us to crawl out of poverty. I'm also interested in this election. I believe this election is important because healthcare is on the ballot. And being a father of 7 daughters, I want my daughters to have the freedom to decide what they want to do with their bodies, as opposed to having government sanctions on their bodies. So it's important that we get out the vote this year for democracy, for healthcare, and for economic development in the Black communities. I'm encouraging everybody right now to get out and go vote. If you've already voted, call up 10 people on your phone and take them to the polls. If you have not voted, grab 5 people and get to the polls today. Early voting has started. As Black people, we must come together and build our political power to begin to change the things inside of our community that needs change. And that only happens with beginning this year's voting in this year's election. So if you have not been to the polls yet, get to the polls. We have 5 more days left of early voting, and we need the hugest turnout this year more than ever. So get out and vote in this most important election this year. Thank you.
So Ray and Maya, thank you for reminding us that the outcomes will not happen in spite of us, y'all. It'll happen because of us. And each of you reminded me that, hey, if this thing wasn't so important, wasn't so precious, like why are they putting up so many barriers to try to keep us from getting to the polls? And we know that we have participated not because of access, but in spite of the barriers that have been placed in our way. And so we know that there's so many opportunities for us to participate. And it's either now or never, y'all. So if you were thinking about getting involved with a local organization in your town or in your city, right now, this moment, today is the time to step in and to do that. If you were thinking about volunteering for a candidate who's aligned with your values, because we know we go vote our conditions, y'all. We're not just going to vote for candidates. We're going to vote the conditions. We're going to vote for our aspirations. But today, right now, is the time to do that. So y'all know in organizing, and we're good organizers, and so we're always ready with an ask. And we know when we look back at the outcome in a critical state like Michigan, we know that if just the folks in our houses and on our blocks and around the corner would have showed up back in 2016, we would have had a different outcome and certainly a very different 4 years. And so we're not going to repeat that mistake. And so I'm inviting you, if you don't have an opportunity to participate, to help us reach voters, I'm going to invite you to join later on today, right? So this is not an opportunity for next week or this weekend. This is tonight, happening tonight, 5 to 7 p.m. Eastern in Michigan. A number of organizations are coming together to reach out to Black voters who have not yet voted and to share a word of inspiration, to connect with those voters and encourage and support them in stepping out over the next few days to participate. So again, tonight, Moses Action, Michigan United, Mothering Justice, Detroit Action, and others are coming together for a virtual event. You can join right where you are right now. You can join wherever you are right now. You can just jump on, log on, take a minute, and register for tonight's event. Again, 5 to 7 p.m. Eastern. It is virtual. You can join from your couch. You can join from your porch. Wherever you are, you can jump on and help us reach voters. So we know over the last several months, we've seen protests in every corner of this country, and in many ways also around the world. And so at this point, we're going to take a digital look back, quick look back at some of the highlights of folks just like you and I showing up in the streets, really lifting our voices together, and a call for collective reckoning on race in this country. Let's take a quick look back at some of those highlights from earlier this summer. Take it away. While we can often point to the pain that is real, that is impacting our community, it's also important for us to kind of center joy. We are fueled by aspirations and hope.
There's a strength that comes from the deep part of you. When you begin to settle down and think about it and understand the strength, that strength rises up in you, not just for you, but for others. If you knock me down, I'ma get on up. Top speed when you hit the ground. Just get on up when you get knocked down.
You know, the kind of changes that we want to see only happens when you get involved. So this is our democracy, and we got to fight for it. We got to work to create it, to make it more just and to make it more equitable.
Let's take this energy to the polls and do all we can to change the fate of this country. Now more than ever, Black, Brown, and Indigenous people must work together not only to fight for justice, but to fight to create a new America where we are free and where we can thrive.
All right. And so thank you so much for hanging in there with us. We know that it's been a jam-packed hour. It's hard to believe that we've been together for an hour already. And this has been certainly incredible, right? We know that it's either now or never, y'all. Let it be that when the story of this election is written, let it be that we didn't say we could have reached out to a few more people. It's today, it's right now. We have the opportunity to help shape this democracy, to ensure that it reflects our best hopes, that it reflects our greatest aspirations. So thank you for hanging in there with us. We are now in the home stretch. We have been through so much together over the last several months, but in just a few short days, we have the opportunity in our hands to change the direction of this country. Let me just share that today's event will be immediately available on Community Change Action, both also on our Facebook page, as well as our YouTube pages. And we invite you to comment, to like, to share this, because we know that, you know, our guests over the last hour shared a number of opportunities for folks to get involved. And so we're going to invite you to share this with your colleagues, with your friends, your family, to ensure that they get the information as well. Now, you can learn more about the Black Freedom Collective and Community Change Action by going to our website, communitychangeaction.org. And now let's just spend a little time hearing from Lee Langston. The very beautiful Lee Langston from Kansas City, Missouri, is going to share a song with us to sing us up. Happy voting, y'all. Thanks for logging on. Enjoy the rest of the afternoon.
I was born by the river in a tiny little tent, yeah. And just like that river, I've been running ever since. It's been a long time coming, and I know a change is gonna come. Oh, yes it will. It's been too hard living, but I'm afraid to die. 'Cause I don't know what's out there, oh, beyond the sky. It's been a long time coming, and I know a change is gonna come. Oh, yes it will. When I go to the movies and I go downtown, somebody telling me, "Boy, don't hang around." It's been a long time coming, and I know a change is gonna come. Oh, yes it will. Whoa. Then I go to my brother, and I say, "Brother, won't you help me, please?" But then he keeps on knocking me. Oh, knocking me right back on my knees. Oh, there were times when I thought I wouldn't last for long, but now I think I'm able to carry on. It's been still a long time coming, and I know a change is gonna come. Oh, yes it will. It's been still a long time coming, and I know a change is gonna come. Oh, yes it will. It's been still a long time coming, and I know a change is gonna come. Oh, yes it will. Yes, sir. The change is gonna come, y'all.